There comes a moment in your healing journey that feels like betrayal. The moment you realize that the person who gave you life also gave you your deepest wounds. Not out of evil, but out of inheritance, out of her own unhealed pain. We grow up thinking our struggles are ours alone, our self-doubt, our people-pleasing, our need to be perfect, our fear of abandonment. But beneath it all lies an invisible thread, a pattern woven through generations of women and men who never learned how to love without fear. Healing from your mother isn't about blame. It's about truth. It's about looking beyond the mother you knew and seeing the wounded child she once was. Until you face this, you'll keep replaying her pain through your own life, in your relationships, your self-worth, your silence. But once you see it clearly, you stop being her reflection and start becoming your own person. Subscribe and let's begin. 1. You inherited her wounds before you knew they existed. Before you ever spoke your first words, before you even had the language to name pain, you absorbed hers. Her stress, her self-doubt, her exhaustion, it all lived in the air you breathed. You learned how to love, how to fear, how to survive by watching her navigate a world that didn't always love her back. You thought you were learning life, but really, you were learning her wounds. You saw the way she silenced herself to keep peace, the way she carried too much, apologized too often, or gave until she broke. You didn't understand it then, but your body did. You inherited her nervous system before you ever inherited her beliefs. The rhythm of her pain became the rhythm of your being. Every generation carries the residue of the one before it. Trauma that wasn't faced becomes instruction. Emotional patterns become tradition. If she feared abandonment, you learned to chase love. If she feared rejection, you learned to perform. If she feared not being enough, you learned to overcompensate, to achieve, to please, to disappear, if that's what it took. You were born into a story that wasn't yours, but became yours anyway. And because she didn't have the tools to heal, she passed down survival as if it were love. She couldn't give what she never received. But the moment you see this, really see it, something shifts. The anger softens, the confusion clears. You realize that healing her pain inside of you is not betrayal, it's liberation. You are the first in the lineage to look at the wound and not turn away. You begin to see how her silence made you afraid of your voice, how her endurance made you think suffering was strength, how her self-denial became your blueprint for love. And yet, in that realization, you reclaim choice. Because awareness breaks inheritance. You can honor her without repeating her. You can love her and still say, "This ends with me." This is where healing truly begins. Not by erasing her story, but by writing your own. You become the bridge between what was broken and what will finally be whole. And maybe, just maybe, by freeing yourself, you free her too. 2. Love was taught through obligation, not freedom. Love was never a choice. It was a duty. You were taught to earn it, to bend for it, to suffer for it. Somewhere along the line, affection became conditional, and you learned that being loved required performance. You became who she needed you to be, not because you wanted to, but because love depended on it. You learned when to stay quiet, when to comfort, when to disappear. You learned that peace in the house depended on how well you managed her emotions. And so you began to confuse survival with love. It's not her fault, not entirely. she was probably taught the same thing, that love was a sacrifice, not a sanctuary. That to be good meant to give until it hurt. That to be worthy meant to please. She passed down her unspoken belief that love and pain were inseparable. And so you carried that script into your own relationships. You became the caretaker, the fixer, the one who gives more than they receive. You stayed too long. You tolerated too much. You mistook emotional exhaustion for intimacy, because somewhere deep inside a child still believed, if I give enough, maybe I'll be loved enough. But love that must be earned is not love. It's control dressed as care. It teaches you to abandon yourself just to be chosen. And the cost is heavy. You lose your voice, your joy, your authenticity, all in exchange for conditional approval that never lasts. When you begin to awaken, this realization hits like truth wrapped in grief. You start to see how many times you silenced your needs to avoid conflict. How many times you called it loyalty when it was really fear. You start to see that the love you were taught was survival, not connection. And that's when you begin to unlearn. You start to test what love feels like without obligation, without guilt, without performance. You let silence fall where you used to rush to explain. You allow others to feel disappointment without carrying it for them. You begin to love yourself the way you've loved everyone else, fully, patiently, without condition. It feels strange at first, even wrong, because for the first time, love feels free, not transactional, not manipulative, not something you have to beg for with your behavior. And in that freedom, you begin to see what real love actually is. It doesn't shrink you, it expands you. It doesn't demand your silence, it invites your truth. It doesn't drain your spirit, it nourishes it. You realize that the love your mother modeled was the best she could offer with what she knew. But you get to redefine it. You get to love without the chains of obligation. You get to be loyal to your peace, even if it means breaking the pattern. Because healing doesn't mean you stop loving her. It means you stop loving the way she did. You finally give yourself the kind of love you always deserved, not earned through pain, but born through freedom. 3. Your inner child is still trying to be seen by her. There's a part of you, small, hopeful, and aching, that still stands in the doorway, waiting for her to look up, to notice you, to say the words she never said, I see you, you're enough. You don't have to try so hard. It's a quiet longing that never really leaves. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how much you evolve, there's still that invisible thread pulling you back to the moment you first felt unseen. You've spent your life trying to earn a gaze that was too burdened to meet yours. She wasn't blind, she was busy surviving her own storms. But as a child, you didn't know that. You only knew what it felt like to be overlooked, dismissed, or misunderstood. So you made it your mission to become visible through perfection, through overgiving, through never causing trouble. You learned that being good meant being small, and that love came from proving yourself worthy of it. But here's the truth that hurts before it heals. You can't win love from someone still fighting their own reflection. You were trying to be seen by eyes that couldn't even see themselves. And that realization, that moment of brutal clarity, is where healing truly begins. Because it's not about making her see you anymore. It's about you finally seeing you. For so long, you've been performing for her ghost, chasing her approval in your relationships, your career, your silence. You've been living as the child who still believes, maybe if I do this right, she'll finally love me the way I needed. But healing means letting that child rest. It means kneeling down inside yourself, taking their hand and whispering, "You don't have to keep trying. I see you now. I choose you." That's when something powerful happens. The energy you've spent reaching outward begins to turn inward. You stop seeking validation in others because you finally understand what the wound was never about them. It was about her. And even deeper than that, it was about you. You start to reverence yourself with tenderness. You let your emotions exist without judgment. You learn to comfort your own heart instead of begging someone else to do it. The grief that comes is heavy, but it's sacred. It's the mourning of a version of you that waited too long for love that was never coming in the way you needed it. And when the tears stop, what remains is something quieter, purer, acceptance. Acceptance that she gave what she could. Acceptance that her silence wasn't her fault. Acceptance that love withheld is not proof of your unworthiness, it's proof of her wounds. From that place, you no longer seek her validation. You embody your own. You begin to live not as the child craving permission, but as the adult who finally gives it. You forgive her not because she asked, but because you're done asking. You release her not because she earned it, but because you deserve to be free. Healing from your mother isn't about changing her. It's about no longer waiting for her to change. It's about realizing that you've been the one capable of love, visibility, and peace all along. And when you finally see yourself clearly, you understand that being unseen by her was never the end of your story. It was the beginning of remembering who you really are. 4. Forgiveness isn't denial, it's freedom. Forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't hurt. It's not blind acceptance or rewriting the story to make her the hero. Forgiveness is standing in the full truth of what happened and choosing peace over poison, because holding on keeps the wound open. And at some point you realize that replaying her mistakes in your mind is just another way of staying attached. Anger becomes a ritual, familiar, righteous, heavy. You swear it's protection, but really it's a cage. You don't forgive to free her. You forgive to stop reliving her voice in your head. Every unhealed resentment keeps you anchored to the version of you that was powerless. Every she should've keeps you standing in the same childhood room, waiting for her to turn around. But she's not coming back, not as the mother you needed. And that's the hardest truth of all. Forgiveness begins when you stop waiting for a better past. It doesn't mean you justify the pain. It means you finally accept that it happened and decide it won't define you anymore. You start to see how resentment quietly shapes your life, how it slips into the way you love, the way you trust, the way you hold yourself back. Every wall you built for safety eventually becomes a prison. And when you choose forgiveness, you don't tear down the wall, you walk out the door. Forgiveness is energy work. It's spiritual alchemy. You take what was meant to break you and turn it into wisdom. You stop asking, why did she? And start asking, what can I learn from this? That doesn't erase the ache, it transforms it. The memories remain, but they lose their edge. The emotional charge fades. You no longer feel the sting when her name crosses your mind. Just a soft knowing that chapter taught me strength. And here's what many don't understand. Forgiveness is not reconciliation. You can forgive and still keep distance. You can love her and still protect your peace. You can wish her healing while knowing you can't save her. Forgiveness is when the story no longer owns your energy. It's when you can remember and still breathe deeply. It's when you can look at your reflection and see yourself, not her shadow. When you forgive, the cord between you changes. What once felt like a chain becomes a thread, delicate, light, untangled. And through it, compassion begins to flow. Not the kind that excuses harm, but the kind that understands wounded people wound others. Maybe she never healed because no one showed her how. Maybe she confused survival with love. Maybe she carried the same ache you now carry, and just didn't have the strength to face it. You don't forgive to erase her flaws. You forgive because you've outgrown the need to keep reliving them. And when you finally do, you'll feel it. A quiet release, like exhaling years of tension you didn't know you held. The air around you softens. Your body feels lighter. Your mind stops looping old arguments. That's not denial. That's freedom. Forgiveness is not about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering without pain. It's about seeing the wound and knowing it no longer bleeds. You've spent enough time carrying what broke you. Now it's time to carry what rebuilt you. Forgiveness doesn't change the past. It changes your place in it. You step out of the story as the wounded child and stand as the awakened one, the one who finally ended the cycle. And that is how you become your own healer. 5. You become the mother you always needed. There comes a point in healing where the search ends. Not because you've found her love, but because you've learned how to give it to yourself. It begins quietly. You start doing for yourself what you always wished she would. You speak gently to the parts of you she criticized. You rest when she would have told you to endure. You protect your peace where she taught you to please. You stop begging for softness and start becoming it. This is what true healing looks like. Not forgetting her, not fixing her, but transforming the ache into wisdom. The mother wound turns from a scar into a map, guiding you back to the version of you that never stopped hoping to be held. You realize you were never broken, just unfinished. What you mistook for damage was simply unmet nurturing, waiting to be reclaimed. You begin to reverence your inner child, not as a chore, but as a sacred act. You listen when they cry. You celebrate their small wins. You tell them what no one told you. You're safe now. You don't have to prove yourself to earn love. At first, it feels unnatural. The love you give yourself feels awkward, unearned, because you've been trained to chase it outside of you. But slowly something shifts. The self-blame softens. The anxiety quiets. The mirror stops reflecting what's missing and begins showing you what's growing. And then you understand you are not her. You don't have to repeat her silence, her resentment, her self-neglect. You can love differently, speak differently, choose differently. You can break the cycle without breaking your heart. You begin to hold yourself with the patience she never had the time for. You create safety in your own presence. You stop waiting for someone to rescue you because you've learned how to sit with yourself through every storm. This is what becoming your own mother feels like. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's steady. It's sacred. It's quiet repair in the places no one clapped for. and it changes everything. Because the child in you finally relaxes. The ache to be seen fades. You stop chasing emotionally unavailable people because you no longer confuse inconsistency with love. You stop trying to fix others because you're too busy nurturing yourself. And one day, without realizing it, you do something that marks the end of the cycle. You extend love to your mother, not because she's changed, but because you have. You see her not as the villain, but as the woman who never received what you're now giving yourself. You forgive her humanity without excusing her harm. You love her from a distance that honors both her story and your peace. That's when you know the work is complete. You've turned the wound into wisdom. You've become the safety that once felt impossible. The cycle doesn't end when she apologizes. It ends when you stop living from the wound she left. It ends when you no longer need her love to feel whole. It ends when you finally embody the truth she couldn't teach you. That love was never something to earn. It was always something to become. And when you become it, you not only heal yourself, you heal generations that came before you and protect the ones that will come after. That is the quiet legacy of awakening, to become the mother your soul always needed, and to live at last in the love she couldn't show, but that you now are. And one day, without realizing it, you do something that marks the end of the cycle. You extend love to your mother, not because she's changed, but because you have. You see her not as the villain, but as the woman who never received what you're now giving yourself. You forgive her humanity without excusing her harm. You love her from a distance that honors both her story and your peace. That's when you know the work is complete. You've turned the wound into wisdom. You've become the safety that once felt impossible. The cycle doesn't end when she apologizes. It ends when you stop living from the wound she left. It ends when you no longer need her love to feel whole. It ends when you finally embody the truth she couldn't teach you. That love was never something to earn. It was always something to become. And when you become it, you not only heal yourself, you heal generations that came before you and protect the ones that will come after. That is the quiet legacy of awakening, to become the mother your soul always needed, and to live at last in the love she couldn't show, but that you now are.